Today, dramatic news involving the Speaker of the House. Cenk?
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Down goes Ryan. Down goes Ryan. Down goes Paul Ryan. Okay, come on, you know you look forward to that.
No, I wanted him to go down in November. I wanted him to lose.
I know. So that's going to be a huge part of this story as we break this story down for you guys, why he's leaving in the first place. And part of the reason is because of the Justice Democrats.
I'd say that's a pretty healthy part of the reason.
Yeah.
Not the only one, but it's a good one.
As I'm going to explain in a little bit, it's about 80% of the reason why. Okay, that's I actually think it is the overwhelming majority of the reason why he's leaving. And I say Justice Democrats because Randy Bryce, his Democratic opponent there, is a Justice Democrat, also known as Iron Stash.
Oh, good, because I didn't recognize that first name. I was like, could you use his real name?
His real name, Iron first, Stash second. So Iron Stash chased him out with a crowbar. So we'll explain all that. First, John with the story, and then we'll rank the reasons why he's leaving.
Exactly. So as Cenk says, we're going to give you the real reasons why he stepped down. But before we get to that, here are reasons he did not step down, delivered by Paul Ryan.
The job provides incredible opportunities. But the truth is, it's easy for it to take over everything in your life. And you can't just let that happen. Because there are other things in life that can be fleeting as well. Namely, your time as a husband and a dad, which is the other great honor of my life. That's why today I am announcing that this year will be my last one as a member of the House. To be clear, I am not resigning. I intend to full my served term as I was elected to do. My kids weren't even born when I was first elected. Our oldest was 13 years old when I became Speaker. Now, all three of our kids are teenagers. And one thing I've learned about teenagers is their idea of an ideal weekend is not necessarily to spend all of their time with their parents. What I realize is if I am here for one more term, my kids will only have ever known me as a weekend dad. I just can't let that happen. Some of you know my story. My dad died when I was 16. The age my daughter is. And I just don't want to be one of those people looking back at my life thinking I spent more time with my kids when I know if I spend another term, they will only know me as a weekend father.
That's a good one because of the family. Because of the family.
I've never heard it before.
So I wrote down 4 principal reasons why Paul Ryan is leaving. I forgot to put family down. It's not why. And he'll soon get a job as either a lobbyist or a consultant or an advisor that will pay him an unbelievable amount of money. And because of that, he will be going back and forth between Washington or New York fairly often anyway. That joke, by the way, about his teenage kids, they don't really want to spend time with their parents. Like they fell so flat. I was like, oh my God, that's awkward. So look, if every legislator that had kids that were teenagers left to spend time with their teenage kids, we'd have no one in Congress. That's crazy, that's not why. They say that every single time. No serious press person should ever take, oh, I left because of my family, seriously, unless it is an incredibly specific case like Sandra Day O'Connor had, her husband had Alzheimer's and she wanted to spend a certain period of time and she only had a limited time with him before he lost recognition of her, et cetera. Like that makes it, I got teenage kids who don't want to see me anyway? What? No, that's not why.
Okay. Wow, so as I said, yep, that was a pack of lies. He had others, we're not gonna go into them. But let's start talking about some of the reasons that he might have felt like now was a good time to transition out. So as a segue into this, here is what he says are his biggest accomplishments in his time in Congress. Probably the 2 biggest achievements for me are, first, the major reform of our tax code for the first time in 36 years, which has already been a huge success for this country. And that's something I've been working on my entire adult life. Something I've focused on since becoming Speaker is to rebuild our nation's military. This is the second one. And after addressing our military readiness crisis, that was a top priority we got done last year as well. So he's talking about passing the tax cuts and then passing the massive spending bill because he is a deficit hawk. That is his reputation, his reputation since the beginning. And you'll be shocked to find out that the CBO is now projecting as of this week that the deficit is gonna reach $1 trillion by 2020. That happened in record time under his watch with Donald Trump.
So let's break those two things down. He has raised $54 million in just this election cycle, not in his career, just this election cycle, and we haven't even warmed up yet for this cycle. So why is that? Because he was about to pass trillions of dollars in tax cuts. So he's the Speaker of the House, incredibly important position. He goes to all the top Republican donors, says, gimme, 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 gimme. Then he doles it out to the other Republicans, and that's why the donors, when they say, you better pass tax cuts, otherwise we're not gonna give you any more money, Paul Ryan goes and talks to all the Republicans, go, hey man, all these bribes are gonna end in a second if we don't get them what we got bribed for. So he's incredibly proud to have done his job as a water boy. I take money from the rich, $54 million, I give it to the other water boys in Congress who all work for these donors, and then they get, in return, trillions of dollars in tax cuts. Now, Paul Ryan, his whole life had said, my main thing, he didn't say tax cuts was his main thing. He said, I want to make sure I get the deficit under control. I care about a balanced budget. That tax cut cost the budget $1.9 trillion. That's a deficit. I'm not talking about the overall cost of the package. I'm talking about it added $2 trillion to the deficit. So Paul Ryan's entire career was based on a lie, a $2 trillion lie. When push came to shove, he didn't care about the deficit at all, not at all. All he cared about was, how do I deliver for those donors? And then the defense contractors are a nice second thought. Oh, by the way, are we safe from Canada invading or whatever fantasies they have in their heads? Oh, the Mexicans are coming like they're gonna take over the country. Sharia law, total nonsense. No, it is to get Lockheed Martin and Boeing and all those companies ungodly sums of money because they are huge donors to the Republican Party. And that's what he's quote unquote proud of.
And they will also need lobbyists as well. I don't know that I would put that in the top 5 of the industries he's going to end up representing within a year or so, but it's possible. I mean, mentioning it on your way out might be a way to get a job working for, Lockheed or one of those companies. Now, as to how long ago people thought that he might be leaving, this came out in the months following Trump's victory. He began contemplating the scenarios for his departure. This is based on people who've spoken with him. So we're talking about over a year ago. More recently, over closely held conversations with his kitchen cabinet, Ryan's preference had become clear. He'd like to serve throughout the rest of this cycle and retire ahead of the next Congress. This would give Ryan a final legislative year to chase his second white whale. Entitlement reform, which we've heard is something they were going to turn to, while using his unrivaled fundraising prowess, as Cenk alluded to help protect the House majority, all with the benefit of averting an ugly internecine power struggle during election season. So he doesn't want to be involved in that necessarily.
Yeah.
And there's some related issues to that, I think, as well. But a lot of that turned out to be true. And what's interesting is, man, politicians are so dishonest. Are you going to run for something? No, I'm not going to run for that. I'm happy serving in the office that I'm at. Are you going to be stepping down? No, definitely not. And so let's turn to a video JR cut from just a couple of months ago when Politico, I believe it was, reported that people were saying he was going to be stepping out. This is his response to that.
No, I actually never did. That's what surprises me about this. That's why I thought it was a very irresponsible piece. To the idea that after passing tax reform, as if it's the only thing I care about, I'm just going to leave, get up and go, it's ridiculous. It's a thought that never entered my mind, let alone discussed it with anybody. So I really see this as sort of rank speculation among the DC Beltway press. Speculating these things. I think that was fairly irresponsible speculation. It's faulty speculation. I'm not going to get up and leave this Congress, our conference, and my responsibilities in the middle of this term. So there's a lot of work to do. That's why I'm not going anywhere soon.
So he says, I'm not going to pass tax reform and then just leave. Why are you guys engaging in rank speculation? He didn't say fake news, but he was thinking fake news. And so a couple months later, or within a month, they passed the tax legislation. And then 2 months later, he steps down.
What did I tell you guys? The only thing they cared about was tax cuts for the rich. That was their one and only priority. So yes, when you get into specific subsidies for the different industries, sure, that's great, wonderful. Like I get specific things, specific deregulation for certain industries, you make more money polluting our rivers and waters, great, that's all great. But the tax cuts was the trillions of dollars in the goodies. That was the big treasure chest. They got that, none of them care anymore. They're also, And I said this from day one, from the moment that Trump took office. I said their overwhelming priority will be tax cuts, and then they could impeach him, do whatever they want with him. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is taxes. Okay, so why is Paul Ryan actually leaving? So there are 4 reasons why. So to the credit of the mainstream press, they don't really give a lot of time to the family reason. They also ignore that. They don't dismiss it like I do, but they ignore it. So number 4 is the one that they talk about most. The civil war within the Republican Party, the conservatives pressuring him and they're frustrating him, and the Freedom Caucus, and it's a tough job, and who would really want this job? Okay, they spend 80% of their, go read any article in the mainstream press. They spend 80% of their time talking about that. That is not the real issue. That is about 2% of his consideration. Yeah, all these things are tough jobs. Politicians love power. They're not like, oh golly gee, I've been pressed a little bit. This is a tough job, I gotta go, right? No, that's not how it works. So that is not, it's not to say it's not a consideration, but it is a tiny consideration. That's reason number 4. Reason number 3 is cashing in. And you'd think, hey, that might be reason number 1. But look, he's only 48 years old. He's got a lot of years to cash in. And these guys, they have trouble letting go of power. But he's gonna leave and he's gonna make an unreal amount of money. Okay, so when he talks about his family and taking care of his family, that's actually what he's talking about. Like, I'm gonna make so much money. The kids are teenagers, they're gonna go to college soon, okay? I gotta make some serious moolah here, because he's gonna go back into government. This is the revolving door.
No, Cenk, he literally just said today he's not going to run again. He's done with politics. He said maybe I'd be an ambassador to Ireland in my 60s.
Sure.
So you've just been proven wrong. We should have bet.
Okay, so there are rumors on whether he's going to challenge Mike Pence for the nomination in 2020 when they assume Trump will not be there anymore. Okay, so those are some, among the speculation that's going. Some say 2024, some say other posts, etc. But what do? This is the MO of almost all the politicians, especially if they're the age of Paul Ryan. You go cash in, make millions and millions and millions of dollars, and then you come back into government in a worst case scenario as a cabinet secretary, etc. And like Scott Pruitt, you go, okay, thank you to the industry that gave me all this money. I will now destroy any regulation involved there, etc. And you go through that. So that's reason number 3. Reason number 2 is, he doesn't want any part of Trump. So, because Trump is going to put him in an impossible situation. He's not getting out before the next Congress, as he stated. He's getting out before impeachment. That's what he thinks, but he's not gonna make it. I think that whatever's gonna happen with Trump is gonna happen before the midterms and hence before he retires. So Chaffetz made the right move, get out right now. In fact, Paul Ryan, fun little prediction, if it sounds like it's gonna head towards impeachment and a total blow up, might pull the chute just like Chaffetz did and go, I meant at the end of my term, but you know what? Teenagers gotta run, right? Somebody just turned 13, I gotta go. Because if they're going to do impeachment, he's between a rock and a hard place. He has said all along, including today, let Mueller do his job. The rule of law in this country is really, really important. There's a Republican congressman off the record talking to Eric Erickson today, talking about how we all know Trump's an idiot and we would all impeach him if we could, if it comes to it, if he fires Mueller. And now, if you go to impeachment, the Speaker of the House, about as relevant a human being as there is on the planet.
Yeah.
So then if he betrays Trump, those Republican voters that are the base of Trump and the base of the new Republican Party will hate him forever and he'll never get reelected to anything again, okay? If he goes for impeachment. If he doesn't go for impeachment, well, that's the most craven, ridiculous thing if Trump did all those things, etc. So all of his, either you lose any kind of semblance of being
a serious politician who cares about the country, who cares about the Constitution, etc. You are screwed if you're caught in that trap. Yeah.
So Jesus, that's reason number 2. What the hell is reason number 1? Reason number 1 is he's in a district that's only +5 Republican. The Republicans just lost a district where they were +19. They had a 19-point advantage and they lost anyway. In a +5 district in Wisconsin, where we just had 2 enormous upsets. One that's the governor, Scott Walker, said was a huge red flag for all Republicans across the country, and another one in a judge vacancy, where another shocking victory, big victory for progressives. Wisconsin is going blue wave big time. Scott Walker, the governor's like, help, I need more money, we're dying out here, right? Frank Luntz, the top Republican pollster, saying, you don't get it, it's a tsunami. The House is gone. The Senate is gone. It's gone. Okay, now whether you believe that, John, or not, that's what the top Republican pollsters are saying. That's what every poll is showing. That's what Sabato says, one of the top political scientists. Gone.
Antonio Sabato Jr.?
No. So that means if you're in a +5 district and your opponent, Iron Stash in this case, Randy Bryce, has raised over $2 million in just the last quarter. Not overall, just the last quarter he raised $2 million in small dollar donations. He's a Just Democrat, he doesn't take corporate PAC money. Randy Bryce is coming with you with a blowtorch. You're in a +5 district.
Knows how to use it.
If you, as the Speaker of the House, lose your own seat, you're humiliated.
Yeah.
It would be literally an unprecedented loss. It would be a historic loss. And right now, he's looking at, that was the Senate.
Yeah.
Okay, right, but Daschle-like loss, that's right. So he's looking at the precipice. He's looking at the abyss. He's gotta go. Are you insane? Why are we having a conversation about Republican civil wars and families and all that nonsense? No, he's gotta leave because he has, at a minimum, a 50% chance of absolutely being humiliated and run out of town, tarred and feathered. That's why he's resigning. And by the way, look, Randy Bryce has a lot of supporters and a lot of help, a lot of groups that are backing him, great, strong, progressive groups, et cetera, right? And he's also a Just Democrat. So I'm not saying Just Democrats get the only people to get credit, not remotely the case. All those groups should get credit for all the help that they've given, PCCC, et cetera, to Randy Bryce. But I remember when the Justice Democrats started, it was the idea that we would even get one person in Congress was funny. Justice Democrats, progressive, deeply progressive candidates who don't take any corporate PAC money. Maybe you'll get one by accident. It looks like a Justice Democrat-backed candidate is about to take the Speaker of the House's job. What now? What now? By the way, we'll have the links down below to help Randy Bryce take that seat. Don't take anything for granted, and links to Justice Democrats as well.
Yeah.
If you become a member of the Young Turks, you'll be saying,
You know, I'm like a smart person.
So do it right now, tytnetwork.com/join. Get the whole Young Turks show every day.